Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CVCISO podcast number 80. I'm your host, Andy. Today we have the founder of FR Secure, Evan Francen, Executive Director of Security Studio Academy, Dave Tuckman, and he puts the down in Jordan, the treasurer of the Minnesota CVCISO chapter, Jordan More or Less Money Darlington. Today we have Walter Anderson. He is the founder and CEO of PortSecure Cybersecurity and a valued member of the CVCISO community. Couple of quick items before we get into it. The CVCISO program begins April the 6th. Great opportunity to level up your skills in risk assessment, information security, and leadership. No prerequisites, no attendance taken, and amazing guest speakers. And you get to hang out with Glenn, our instructor. He's also amazing. Also, the CVCISO Level 3 courses are available. There's a budgeting course, a communications course, and a complex environments course taught by Brian Gibbs. He is also a great instructor. And also there's an API security course that is online now as well. Feel free to hit me up for discounts and also additional information. Oh, and then we've got the risk assessment certificate coming up here. That's new, coming up end of March. So look for some information coming on that soon. That's it for coming events. Take it away, gentlemen.
That was good, Andy. There's a little extra flair in the way you did that this time.
Only when talking about you, Jordan.
But you didn't introduce yourself.
I'm your host, Andy. That didn't count?
Did you say that? I missed it.
You got to pay attention, Jordan. Sorry. I award you no points.
And Andy carries so much respect. Andy carries so much respect in this room. We're like, did he even say this? And he's like, yeah.
Yes, I did.
But you don't didn't give yourself flair. He puts the D in Andy.
That's all right. I could do that.
So without him in the room, it's just Andy.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I'm glad we said we would use this as an opportunity to be more like adults.
Put on your adult voices, children. Yeah. Was that the quote?
30 seconds in.
Well, you know we're in a really bad spot when I'm the. We're in a really bad spot when I'm the guy that's trying to be the dad here.
Yeah.
The guy who's probably got the longest criminal record of any of us.
I don't know. Walter might have a criminal record. We don't know yet.
No way.
Yeah, but he's from Canada. Does it even count?
They have felonies.
Well, we're very polite here.
Exactly. Canadian people are awesome, man. Down here in Puerto Vallarta, we have, I tell people the only assholes I've ever run into down here are Americans and Canadians, mostly Americans. But the Canadians are so nice. They're, I've really, in this different kind of perspective, I've really appreciated a lot more about the Canadian culture. I will say this, though, about Canadians is they're known here in Mexico as not being great tippers. They don't tip well.
What? Is that true, Walter?
We take Canadians, we tip all the time. In fact, my daughter trained me to have to tip 25% or else.
Woo!
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's just waitress.
Maybe it's just the Canadians who come down to Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
So, Walter, we have to have you come down and set the record straight with these people.
Smacking people around, Walter.
Maybe they don't understand the exchange rate.
We've been traveling out of Porta almost every other year for many years. But we go down we stay in Bucerias, a nice little community up there in Nuevo Vallarta, Bucerias, and
Northside,
a few other small towns up there. And we've gone down to Port Escondido a couple of times.
Do you tip well when you're there, Walter?
Pardon me?
Do you tip well when you're there?
Oh, yeah, we usually tip well. Yeah, help out. And then, including, the homeless people.
That's right. That's me.
You're always going to give them something. Yeah. The chiclets. No, we
That's
did
not
Puerto
really a tip,
Vallarta,
that's a donation.
and I'm one of the guys. I get the backpack, right? And like you, Evan, and my wife, we go down there and she fills things up on the strip there on the Malacan. And then we go in a couple of streets and hit all of the Mexican shops. And then she loads up on all the stuff there.
Yeah.
Our first stop always is Costco. She worked for Costco for 30 years. So we have all of these pictures and it's going to be like, where in the world is Shelley? And she's standing in front of a Costco and you have to guess which store it is and which city it's in.
Interesting. Awesome.
But that's
awesome, man.
She loves to shop until you drop kind of thing. And I'm just, I usually carry the bags. It's my job. Yeah.
Yeah. So what part of Canada are you in?
I'm up on the west coast of Canada, which is and I'm on Vancouver Island, which is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
It's a large island. It's about 500 kilometers in length. So it takes, and it's all mountainous. And I'm in the central part of Vancouver Island. And we get a lot of the same weather you see if you watch the news like Seattle gets. So
a lot of rain, but everything here is green and it's beautiful. We got ski mountains, and we've got Vancouver's across the strait here, the Sailor Sea. So that's a ferry trip. That's an hour and a half on a large ferry, car ferry. You take out over there, and then there's tons of things to do over in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver, which is you've got Whistler, which is a famous ski resort, and as well as we're on the border, so it used to be really cool to go to US to go shopping, but hasn't been so much lately. But otherwise, it's a very popular place for people to come and visit tourism here. Victoria's got 300 or 400 cruise ships coming in a year, kind of like Puerto Vallarta, and it just never stops. And they just pour in, with the wives and all the guys with backpacks and go shopping downtown Victoria, and then they leave 4 hours later, right? So,
I can't even tell you how much money I've given to those homeless backpack carrying tourists.
Yeah, right.
I feel sorry for them.
But
that's awesome, man. So I want to use this, unless there's any objections, I want to use this time to talk more about Walter. I want to hear about your career, because it's a long career. I'm not calling you old, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Hear about your career. Hear about what you do in relation to VCISO work, CVCISO, and how you became part of the community. And how did one of these guys convince you to come here and talk with us on this podcast? Because we're a little weird, man.
It didn't take much, did it?
I love it.
Did you have to pay him?
No, I haven't been paid. What? Nobody said anything about money.
I gave him a coupon.
Oops, I should have kept my mouth shut.
75% off.
But Danny did say I get free classes for the rest of my life.
Boom.
That's awesome. So tell me, what's the day in the life of Walter?
Day in the life. So where did I get started? See, I just love to take things apart. Like it's going back to childhood, toys, Christmas time, whatever I received. The first thing I did was grab a screwdriver and dismantle it, and take it all apart, figure out what's inside, not everything from electronic toys to television sets and everything in between. So I learned how to fix things by taking them apart, put them back together. I guess that's just how my mind works. And then my first computer was an Apple IIe, 2 floppy disks, 5 1/4 floppy disks.
Yeah.
Father brought one home. I never had one after that. I never stopped playing with the computers, programming them. I usually ran out of space, and before I could finish my coding, and of course, if you're familiar with all of the evolution of technology and computers, from there was everything from the VIC-20 to the Commodore 64 to the I don't know, you name them, they were there. The K-Pros and the Radio Shack TRS-80s and long before DOS ever existed, I was hacking away, playing on computers. Criminal record career started in university when I hacked into the VAX mainframe and stole the faculty files and shared them. That was fun. Got caught. Enjoyed that experience.
What was your motivation? I'm curious, what was your motivation? Because I can totally relate to this. What was your motivation for doing that when you did that?
Well, I was just more or less curiosity, and it was so bloody easy. And I showed everybody else in the lab how to do it. And it was just a matter of a few keystrokes, and it bypassed the security, which really was there. So they didn't just punish me, they punished everybody in our class and took away all of our extracurricular privileges and lab time. And then they forced me to teach every lunch hour.
Wow.
Was anybody in the class like an accomplice, or did they just go down?
There was a few accomplices, my buddies and stuff like that. So it was good. Nothing really harmful came out of it, other than we certainly woke up the IT department at the university and shook things up pretty good. And then of course they didn't kick us out; they just put us to work, right? So, and I was taking university classes, first and second year universities at the same time, because I could write what were they teaching back then? Basic, Fortran, COBOL, assembly language, fun stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Dead languages, but yeah, it was cool. I loved assembly. I mean, just like right down to the bits and bytes and moving stuff from one stack to the other stack. And it's fun to talk about, but nobody really understands what you mean anymore. But anyways, moved on from there. At that time, I was a Volkswagen mechanic. I mean, I was about 16, and I decided one day I'm going to be a mechanic. I want to learn how to fix cars because I wanted to know how to fix cars. So I walked into a garage. I didn't even know what kind of cars they fixed. And I said, hey guys, I'll work for free. And they said, sure. Put on the coveralls, go over there, the wash and start washing auto parts. And then here's some tools, go out there and start taking cars apart. And next thing I knew, I was taking apart Volkswagens and Mercedes and Benzes and just stripping engines. And that's how I learned how to fix cars, is take them all apart, because that's what I was good at. And then I learned how to rebuild them all, put them all back together, one piece at a time. And that was me. I eventually worked my way up to the auto parts on the warehouse and selling parts on the counter, because a 100,000 square foot warehouse, I could tell you where, somebody comes and says, I need a spark plug, or I need a hydraulic fitting, or whatever it was. And I could run and grab it, give it back to you, because I knew the parts manual back and forth and where everything was in the warehouse. And I asked one guy, so hey, how long have you been working here? And the guy says, 20 years. And how much do you make? Oh, I make 25,000 a year. And I went, okay. And I quit the next day. Realized it was a dead end job selling auto parts, and went back to school to took the first class on microprocessors. That's when IBM came out with the PS1, PS2, the Turbo XT. Remember the 8088? You pushed a button, you went from 4.77 megahertz to 8 megahertz or 6 megahertz. And then, so we learned how to, with breadboards, how to make circuits and stuff like that with 8088 microprocessors and move bits around. And so they retired the old PDP-11 mainframe around that time, and then it became a microprocessor and computer repair course. And so we learned how to, back in the days, you had to format drives, and it was all command line to kind of do that kind of stuff and prepare a drive and generate them, and lots of floppy disks. What else? And so
that's cool.
At the end of the program, I just did the same thing again. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go work for a computer company. So instead of doing a job search thing, I just got on a city bus and I ran around all the computer companies that were in the yellow pages. And I said, I will work for free. And one of them said, sure, come on in the back room. And they put me to work building computers, taking them apart, building computers. And then eventually I worked my way up to management, and then a bunch of cowboys upstairs called the computer clinic were building something called Novell file servers. And I thought that was really cool. So I jumped ship and went up there, and we would sit around evenings and weekends and drink lots of rum and Coke and gen Novell servers, Novell 2.0, 2.1, and sit there with stacks of floppy disks and build operating systems and servers. And we couldn't sell them fast enough, and we just made a lot of money. And I got into sales, did a lot of great stuff. And then I met a girl, the receptionist, that thing that happens.
Oh, yeah. I like girls, Walter. Now you have my attention.
Me and the blonde, sexy secretary grabbed a plane ticket, and we took off for a year and traveled the South Pacific and spent time in a month in Hawaii, 3 months in Fiji.
Yeah.
And got to New Zealand after the first month or so up in the Bay of Islands up in Kerry there. She started cheating on me. So basically I dumped her, gave her a bus ticket, and I left. Me and my brilliant mate, and we went hitchhiking.
Stories going all over the place.
This is awesome. I'm recording this, and I'm writing a book.
Yeah, let me edge of my seat, man. This got everything.
This is so much more than what we've actually talked about.
Yeah. I met some interesting people. I was a homeless person for like a year, literally. We slept in tents and in cow paddocks. I remember we woke up one morning and we could hear all like, moo. Like, what the fuck's that? And we wake up and we're surrounded by all this cattle. And we just freaked out, grabbed our bags, and jumped over the fence before we got stampeded.
Yeah.
But we were hitchhiking, and there's one story. We were on the, I think we're on the, somewhere in the South Island, could be the North Island. I can't remember. It was years ago, of New Zealand, and the Maoris pick us up. The local Aboriginals in New Zealand. And these guys are huge, and they're covered in tattoos. They're kind of like the all black rugby players. You know what I'm talking about? And piercings, and they get in this really old Nova. It's all jacked up on tires, and we get in the car, and they say, "Come on in." They give us we'll give you a ride, and we're heading to Manganui, some strange place, and the locals, but friendly as hell. But like, what's that smell? Oh, that's the gasoline. We got a leak in the gas tank. and they're all smoking cigarettes and stogies and and whatever, everything else. And it's like, yeah, and they drive like at 80, 90 miles an hour through these winding roads, like death, no fear at all. We're just like, get rid of for great. Like, we'll get out in the next stop, guys. And then, get us out. They're really friendly, but they will invite you in their home and give you the shirt off their backs and feed you and everything else. And it was wonderful. They love Canadians. So, and all the Americans kept stealing our flags off of our backpacks because they didn't like Americans, but they loved Canadians. So it was fun. It was good times. We hitchhiked around there, and then I went to Australia. Oh, I should mention that we met this guy who had this old motor sailor in New Zealand who took us on board, kind of homeless guy of all places, kind of odd. Anyways, I hear him out in the middle of the ocean, and then this pod of dolphins, these big dolphins, big ones, go by, and I, in my spontaneous nature, I jump off the boat while it's moving, and all these wild dolphins around with a snorkel and a mask, thinking I'm going to see them. And of course, I can hear them all, and they're chirping and they're swimming around there, and I'm thinking I'm safe, but I'm actually probably a lot danger. And then I come up for air, and the ship's gone. He had to go way around and turn around. So I'm basically out there treading water in the middle ocean with all these dolphins for a good 30, 45 minutes before I get picked up again. And then he threatened to throw me off again because I didn't want. You just don't jump off a ship in the middle of the ocean.
And then you threw a harness on the dolphins and used them as
I survived. Anyways, yeah. So we lived off the beaches. New Zealand, you can live off of abalone and green mussels and anything, and oysters. If you love shellfish, there's an endless amount of it, and fishing. But we got tired of it after a while and decided to chase down a wild turkey. It was kind of like Lord of the Flies. You remember that? And we all had our little Swiss Army knives running through the forest chasing this and helpless little wild turkey. And then when we did kill it, it was a terrible experience. And then it was tasted awful and nobody could eat it. It was just the worst tasting meat you'd ever tasted. We were warned not to eat the wild turkeys, and we found out the hard way why.
So let me get this straight. So you're homeless, you're swimming with dolphins, you're hunting wild turkey, and then you just have like a vision of, I'm going to be a VCISO.
Yeah. So forward, lots of other adventures in Australia. Again, we were in Melbourne. I'd been staying there for a while, with a bunch of homeless people in hostels, and I squeegeed windows. You guys who go out and they wash your car windows for cash, and you hold your hand. That was me. So we'd make a handful of change so we could buy some beer and hot potato, and we call them hot chips and fish and chips, basically, French fries. Yeah, we did that for a few weeks until I got my ticket, and flew up to Cairns, Australia, and then in northern Australia there, I did the same sort of thing. I said, I want to go on a sailboat for 3 months. I think I'm going to go live on a boat. So I went down to the yacht club and put my name on the poster board, and a big tall guy above me reaches over, pulls my name off. I said, hey, buddy, I just put that up there. He says, yeah, dock A, slip 7, be there at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Okay, I got a job. Just like that. I show up there, and the couple there is there with this big German Shepherd, and they've got a 50-foot motor sailing ketch, and they have their suitcases packed. And I'm going, what's the deal, guys? And they said, oh, we have business to do over in Cooktown. So here's the keys to the boat. This is the dog. His name is Sam. He's really friendly. He's got food and water. You guys just stay on the boat, look after the dog. We'll be back in a week.
And Walter said, somebody just made a bad mistake.
Well, there I am in my boat, I travel, I play guitar. So I traveled everywhere with my 6-string, and I'm sitting there just serenading myself with a bottle of wine, and this other sailboat pulls up, and these 2 New Zealand girls get off. They were crewing on there. They've been on the boat for a while, and
here we go.
Well, to make a long story short, one of them took a liking to me. I guess it must have been the raw garlic. I don't know.
Raw garlic.
So we spent a week on the boat with this beautiful young woman from New Zealand. Lots of entertainment there. Anyways, so when they did come back from their business trip, and these guys were like carnies. They owned all those food trucks that went to the carnivals and stuff. That was their business. They lived in a boat with a bunch of food trucks, and they just make sure that people worked on them. So we sailed off. I spent a few months on a boat. I was tired to cook, but they refused to eat my food because it was so terrible. So they didn't do that. Instead, we brewed our own beer. We put it in the holds, and then we just eat fresh prawns from the local fishing boats and prawn fishing boats. in the way Australians, we eat green beers, which is like, well, it's been down in the hole for like 2 weeks. We should be able to drink it now. So it's not really finished yet. And then you get a bucket of fresh prawns and you just eat that, literally beer and prawns. That's how they did it in the boats back then. One day I'm sitting there and, we're in Lizard Island in a beautiful place outside a resort. And there's this nice, like kind of, bay we're sitting in, and it's Great Barrier Reefs right there and all that stuff.
Hey, Walter. Yeah. Hey, if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to shift over to some of the things that you've been doing, like with it just and really is, dude. We'll have you back for part 2 of.
I'll tell you about the hammerhead shark another day then. Sure.
But no, just point being, because you're doing so much in the community and the things that you do and all the things that I've learned from you in the short time I've had a chance. I'd just love to let some of the listeners hear about that, from ISACA to port security and stuff.
Sure, no doubt. So
I just want to know what happened to the New Zealand girl first.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff that going on and the stories that I'm telling you and stuff like that, I apply to today's life and I build analogies around that. So
awesome.
I build security analogies around risk, like jumping in the water with a hammerhead shark and that kind of stuff. So where I am today is like, again, going back to where I started, one day I woke up, I had what's called an entrepreneurial seizure, decided to go into business for myself. And I started a computer company and I built that up, a successful company. We called back before they were doing before security assessments were a thing, it was called network performance reviews. We made it up. We became one of the early managed service providers that built these things. And we go in, we just basically audit people's networks and their systems. And
what was the name of that business?
It was called ITC Computers, Information Technology Computers. And
how old were you when you founded that?
Oh, I was, I would be by about my 30s, early 30s. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So were you married at the time?
Yeah, I had been married for about 5 years. So I got married in the mid 90s, 94. I was working for a credit union. I was managing information systems for credit unions. Then it was ripping out old terminals and putting in Windows workstations and building Windows servers and networking and building security for financial institutions. And then I did contract work where we called them bank jobs. They would basically lock us in at 5 o'clock in the evening with a whole bunch of servers and computers. And then they would let us out in the morning, and overnight we would transform the place from a bunch of old dumb terminals to Microsoft networks. That was the day. And we used to travel all over to do that for many years, for many months, pardon me. When I started the business, because there was a need for professionalism and there wasn't enough skilled people in the industry that I could find to do the work that you do to build the technology and the security that financial institutions needed. So I started that. Eventually grew into an MSP. We had 12 engineers and salespeople, and it was quite successful right up until 2009. And global recession kind of took place. I took off to Africa to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I was gone for a month. When I came back, the sales manager had taken half the staff to the competition and along with half my clients while I was away. And on top of the global recession, things kind of collapsed, put the company and me personally into financial ruin. Tried to keep it going on personal financing and credit cards and debt. Eventually I lost my house and went into what's called a consumer proposal situation where I paid everything back. Took me 8 years to rebuild that. But when I finished up and I sold what was left of the customer list, one of my long-term clients, then the name of Port Authority, brought me in on a contract basis because the local computer company or the service provider that had bought the customer list had no idea how to service the network. They said it was too complicated, but it really wasn't. It was just an enterprise network that was built with redundancy and resilience and safety. And so I've been there for doing regular renewing my contract annually with the Port Authority, but I've also built my other business. So in that time frame, I got my CISSP, CISA, CISM, Security Plus. And I mean, I had a long list of other industry certifications that I had for many, many years when I was building the managed services business and building servers and of all flavors, everything from Novell, Banyan, Unix, you name it, Microsoft, done them all. Anyways, focused more on cybersecurity because I knew then that that was going to be a big problem, and there was not enough of that around. So that's when I started. Shortly after that, so it was around 2018, I took on a number of other contracts with other companies and formed my business. Before it was PortSecure, it was a different name for it anyways. The point is that I was doing cybersecurity assessments, and so I built my own. I didn't have the tool set then, so I literally had spreadsheets of where I mapped took the NIST, the CIS, and Colbit, combined them together and created a map and a series of questions. Picked up a template off the internet that was developed, and I just kind of took it to a whole new level. So I can go through that, and it would create radar charts and bar charts. I would come up with a scale on this CMM from 0 to 5 and give them a security assessment. So I literally built security assessment tool out of a spreadsheet, and I was doing that. I did that for a number of years for a intermodal global logistics company. We had 5 different terminals, and then they did work with all their ancillary kind of businesses and got them through assessments from their parent companies. And so, that's sort of where I emerged. And then I took the VCISO, came across that, got my certification as a VCISO 1 and 2.
How did you learn of the course?
You know what? I learned I love podcasts. Yes, and I have my and I drive my electric car, and I have Tesla, and I've got Spotify, and I would play the podcasts, and I was searching for CISO podcasts one day, and I came across this podcast called Security Studio with a guy named Evan Francen, and I loved it. And then I heard about this course. I heard about Security Studio, and I basically Googled it and signed up for the course right away. I think it was a 10th cohort.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would have been around 20.
Yeah. Anyway, Glenn did the course. Yeah, so there was a lot of things going on at that time, and just sort of following it ever since. Been doing other security assessments with other companies, not only just the maritime and global logistics organizations, but with Pet Food Association of Canada. Did a presentation for them a little while back. Working with nonprofits, started doing that last year. There's an organization. They're an association of independent offices which do financing for small businesses. So business go in and say, I'm starting a company, or I need financing, and anything from a few thousand to, tens of thousands of dollars. And the money comes through the federal government through a funding program. So if you're eligible and you qualify for that, you get a special rate, and so on and so forth. I was working with one of the people I knew, because at another point in my past, I was the president of the local chamber of commerce, the Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce. And so there's 900 businesses and people in the island knew me, and I did a lot of speaking and lunches and meetings, a lot of community work. And so they said, look, we need you to kind of have a look at this stuff. There's been some of our offices have been compromised. They've been breached. They've had, cyber attacks. And so we started talking with them, and then we used the Security Studio S2org to go through and give them a core assessment, and it worked really well for them. So I created what's called a cyber sprint, which is a 2-week, really quick assessment, get to the questionnaire, give them a score, give them a roadmap. And then that leads into an engagement for like a 90-day transformation, or preferably a year-long engagement, where you become more of a trusted advisor and help them and guide them through that. But now that they've got a list of tasks and action items to do, then we take them through and get them started on doing that. So the option is like, here, you can go do it yourself. Here you go. Here's what you need to do. You can call your local IT provider or do it yourself, or you can use a VCISO like myself, and for a monthly service, a fee for a contract, and I'll do it for you. So since then, in the last couple of months, I've done 4 of these sprints, and then starting this year, we're going to do a 90-day group transformation. So it's going to be like a group cohort, which is the plan is to get them in there with a bit of one-on-one private coaching and consulting. But the idea is to guide them through the rest of the stuff. So we provide them with policies and incident response planning and tabletop exercise, kind of build template for them to do those sort of things. The whole idea is to get the whole association. There's 34 offices in BC here in the province of British Columbia, but there's over 200 across Canada offices. And then same thing with the Pet Food Association and other maritime associations. There's usually an association has just a a number of organizations that get together and have a membership, but they all have very similar or synergistic relationships. They do business with each other, different vendors, different partners, or they're all connected in some form based on their industry. And what I find is that there's what's missing is in these associations, there's no centralization guidelines for everybody to follow. So everybody's done their own thing and they deal with their own independent service providers, and there's no consistency, and so that's why I'm also working with the Association of Canadian Port Authorities, because everybody's doing their own thing independently. So you have all these silos of organizations and businesses and industries today that are working together, but everybody's at a different level, right? You'll see that too with, as you know, you're doing the CMMC and even with the new U.S. Coast Guard taking on the CSXO. There's a whole other thing where they've got all of the maritime ports that the Coast Guard in the U.S. is responsible for is now going to have security assessments done. So there's a huge opportunity.
Are there others, like, do you have peers doing this that you find, or you find that you're more of a pioneer in trying to drive this awareness? And
there are people out there who are further ahead than me, for sure. I mean, they're my peers and mentors. So I follow them on LinkedIn and social media. So some of them have been more established, larger organizations, and they've got, so there's, for example, in this cybersecurity space in the maritime world, you've got a couple of guys that I'm following them. They've got, military experience, so Navy. So they've worked in the U.S. Armed Forces in the navies and shipping industries for years. And so they've moved into this because that is part of their career once upon a time. Then they started a company and they built upon that. So those are the kind of like leaders in that space. But there's lots of other businesses that are doing it, but it's an emerging market. It's definitely a space, and with all of the geopolitics and global, hacks that are taking place, transportation sector is a huge issue, as well as, finances. And then you wouldn't believe it, but the Pet Food Association, it sounds odd, but when you talking to the people, and it's just like the food for your pets, the logistics and the manufacturing process, and the people who are behind the science of building pet food, they get it all over the world. And so it's a global network of transportation, and they got to move products and all of the different products that makes kibbles and wet dog food from all over. So it's a shipping logistics challenge to get, and obviously everybody's got their intellectual property and their secret sauce, and there's scientists who develop it. So as you dig into these kind of associations, you soon realize that there are so many critical industries that are important for making something that you can go walk into the grocery store or the pet food store or Costco and pick up the bag of dog food, but you don't realize how much work and how many companies are behind just that one product.
Yeah. My brother-in-law just retired from working at for the Mars Corporation that makes a lot of the dog food type of stuff. And just by chatting with him, I would learn dude, you nailed it. I mean, it's just, you think you're just getting a bag of food for your pet, but just how big of an industry it is and how it permeates into other industries like you're describing, of transportation and all of those things. It's very interesting to realize how interconnected things are along those lines. Yeah. And it just, because even for, and I know some people, like there's a guy, and I think I'm totally delayed in making introductions to you, but a friend down here in San Diego who was the commissioner of the Port of San Diego. And he was the one on watch when the port got hit by ransomware, I think back in 2017, 2018, and had to navigate through that. And you realize how much goes through a port. And he was part of a team, I think, of 2 that had to navigate through it. So it's very similar to what we'll run into, Andy, what we run into talking to IT directors at schools in school districts, and the Minnesota or Twin Cities areas. Yeah, it's kind of cool, and I love hearing this from you because it brings up those other thoughts and makes it a little more full circle.
Yeah.
Walter, I'm curious, because you have such a robust history in all of this stuff. When you went through the VCISO program, the CVCISO program, was there anything that kind of impacted how you approached things, or something that resonated the most to you on how you applied it to your day to day?
Yeah. Let's see. So when I jumped on the VCISO program, I was already doing CISO work, right? So I had some experience in the industry, and I'd kind of figured it out on my own before found out about Security Studio and the course. And then I took the course because I wanted to know how other people were doing, how Evan designed it. And I loved how you designed it, Evan, and put it together. And there's a lot of correlation with the whole CISSP. And what you need to know, just like, it's the width of the Great Wall of China and, just a few meters thick. But it there's a lot of information to learn and assimilate in doing that, but doing it right was the most important thing. So then what I learned was like, there's a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it. And certainly Security Studios got it right. It was about how to do it and the right kind of approach and mindset and questions and leadership. So while there was a lot of knowledge on the technical side and then the administrative kind of controls and that kind of stuff, that's all part of doing like a NIST security assessment. But there was also the you teach, or it was taught in the course, which wasn't necessarily part of the curriculum, but it was the knowledge of doing it and the experience of doing it, the stories that Evan had and how it did and the things and what not to do as well as important as what to do right correctly and how to approach that. And so everything was great, but kind of when I got a lot of value out of that, and then I was able to utilize that and then understanding how to move through an assessment with a client, to everything from doing the open source intelligence to kind of the finalizing. And then now since then, you've developed the sales side of things and how to. And then I took the recent participated in how to sell a VC, so how to make money as a VC, or how to sell VCISO business, how to grow a VCISO business. So that was one of the things that when I took the cover, wasn't ready yet. Was still in development. We talked about it like, hey, great, I got all this knowledge in my brain and I want to go out and do this, but how do I sell it? How do I get customers, right? And so I think that's still something that's really good. We could develop that a bit more and build a kind of a playbook on how to run and market and sell VCISO services. And it's not like you think it is. It's there's a lot more to it than just waving your flag and saying, hey, I can do this stuff, come ask me to do your security assessment. You have to go out and get clients, and you have to pitch them, and you have to convince them, and you have to get their trust. And there's a leads generation and all sorts of things that goes with running a business and doing sales, and salespeople know that. And then there's today's technology. Today, everybody's doing stuff on their phones, right? So it's direct messaging. I'm also getting coaching from another organization, and Dan Martell wrote "Buy Back Your Time," but it's the whole playbook on how to sell using direct messaging, which is traditional way we've done it in years was through networking and face to face and letters and introductions and other things like that and business cards. Now it's just like you just DM somebody on social media, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or something, and you build trust up that way, and you can actually sell in business relationships and coaching and consulting over a phone, literally by texting somebody or messaging them. And it's because of the generation and the changes in technology and the way people like to do things. It's just another tool, another methodology. It's the same idea, only we're doing it faster. And
I think it just continues to evolve.
It's all about building relationships. So when it comes to Security Studio and VCISO and VCISO businesses and growing a VCISO business and marketing and selling that, one of the big things, I believe is building that relationship up early with that client and getting their trust, because everybody's out there with their shingle, and you've got to be competitive. You've got to figure out about your UPC, unique, whatever that is, going to be attracted to that client. And so that they will like, hey, okay, yeah,
I like you. I know you. I trust you. So let's do this, because when it comes to doing security assessments and helping people, you really have to be well trusted, because they're giving away all their vulnerabilities and opening the, up, and you can find out, because you have to let them know, like, hey, you have this kind of risk that you need to address, and this is what it looks like. And then you need to explain it to them in a language that they understand. Because when I'm talking to executive directors of a nonprofit financial institution, they don't understand uh, technical stuff. What they do understand is the language of the boardroom, which is finance and risk management, because that's their business, financing. And so you have to talk to them in a language they understand. So it helps to have my background in the financial industry. Helps that I deal with a lot of executives and C-level, and I sit on and I've been on a number of boards, so you know how to kind of run that. So that experience is valuable. And then having lots of stories to capture people's attention. So whether it's swimming with the dolphins, or face to face with a hammerhead shark, or climbing, Mount Kilimanjaro, there's always something to talk about. And then I've written an
You
ebook.
have better stories than me.
I relate the challenges of doing this, especially the climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, to security risk and to knowledge and how to do things one step at a time. That's what it's called.
Yeah. Your stories are climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Mine's trying to go to Costco on a Saturday afternoon.
Well, I'm taking the kids to Disney here soon, Jordan. I mean, we could throw you in with some crocodiles or something. I'm sure we could find something exotic for you to do. If you want to come with, we got an extra bedroom down there.
But
yes, please.
Each one of those has, it is risk.
Jordan, if you want these experiences, just come hang out with me or come hang out with Walter. That's how you get it.
I'm gonna ride the coattails of you, risk takers.
Well, you got to ask yourself though, do you really have the gumption to do it?
Define gumption.
Well, I was going to say, do you have the balls to do it? But there are some listeners who, because I've purposely been kind of sitting back, listening to the conversation, because a lot of times in these podcasts, I think I talk too much. And so I'm trying to let this one flow a little bit. No, come on. But I think it's fascinating. What some of the takeaways for me, listening is, our mission, the big mission is to fix the broken industry. So when you look across the things that we do in this industry, there's lots of things to be broken or to be fixed. Like, that was the beginning of the CVCISO program. I was tired of seeing VCISOs calling themselves VCISOs and causing more damage than good, right? And, you look across this and you attract, people, and it's not a question of, are you a better VCISO than so-and-so or whatever. The question that's always around in my mind is, are you in this game for the right reasons? And if you are committed to being in this game for the right reasons, well, then we can work together, right? And we can, build a program where we serve the best interests of our clients. And when I look at Walter and I hear about Walter's background, it's like, that's what's so cool, because it doesn't matter what your damn background is. What are you committed to? We can teach you how to be a VCISO. We can teach you the technical skills. We can teach you how to deliver based on our own experiences, based on our own wisdom. And I remind people every time, the way you get wisdom is through painful experiences, or you can get wisdom from somebody else who's been through the painful experiences. And if you're a faith-driven person, the third way you can get wisdom is to ask God for it. So, looking at Walter and hearing about his background, it's like, man, it's so cool, because we have a lot of people that want to get into this industry and they're like, I don't have what it takes, or I don't have the right background. And I remind people, my college degree is in geology, for crying out loud, right? So it's not about, it's this commitment to doing the right things. And if you want to make a great living and serving people and sleeping well at night, every night, knowing that you did the right thing, VCISO is the way to go. But do it right. Because if you don't do it right, people like Walter and I, you make yourself a target for us. Mm-hmm. I don't mind putting companies out of business when you're hurting your customers. I want to enable businesses like Walter's and like mine and like others who want to serve the customers in the right way. So this has been a fantastic, discussion. It's all over the place, but that's what the CVCISO, that's what this podcast is, right? It's real.
I've always been, I've been a guru of self-help books, and this is just my background, but I've had bookcases and bookcases, and I've got tons of audiobooks, and I just a sponge. And so I don't listen to music and sports. I I listen to books and podcasts, and I just soak up more and more because I just can't get enough knowledge in my brain. I guess it's an addiction to knowing everything, and then that's just kind of the risk of the business. However, yeah, I took a lot of courses and at camps where I became. And if you've heard of T.R. Becker, but he's just one of those motivational gurus. But I'm a warrior of the light, and an enlightened warrior. What that means is that you go out into the world and you bring the light, and you do the right thing.
Yeah.
And you talk about faith.
Yeah.
I was a child. I was baptized as a Catholic. I was raised as a Buddhist, and I became, and I got baptized as a Christian when I was in my mid 30s.
Got it all
And
covered.
they got it all covered, right? But I'm still like, I'm my sci-fi junkie and a science and a techie by heart. I love gadgets and I love fixing things and fixing cars and building things. And my wife comes to me and I go to my wife and so like, why do people always come to me with the problems? Oh my God, I'm drained. I can't take it anymore. She says, well, that's because you're the problem solver. That's your job.
Mm-hmm.
You solve problems.
Heavy weight to bear. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because I can, right? And I can take things apart in my head and put it back together and tell people, here's your solution. But try this,
Part of
or
your
whatever. That's just that's who I am and how I'm built. And
Would you call it an enlightened
the other day was
warrior?
like, maybe was here. I wasn't quite sure where I heard it from, but it's like, I'm not weird. I'm just a limited edition. Is that you, Evan?
I like that quote.
That sounds like something I might have said, but
I know I don't get credit for it.
We'll trademark it.
But I embrace weird, man.
Yeah.
Why the hell would you want to be normal? And I don't even know what the hell normal is.
Amen.
Yeah.
Be yourself. And if you are being yourself, hell yeah, you're weird because there's nobody else like you.
Yeah. Well, Walter, I think that kind of ties into you identifying what your purpose is, who you are, and limited edition and what you bring to the table that we call life, and how we can be here for, our friends, our families, work, and our communities, because the work you're doing, in any of those aspects of business is invaluable. But you can just take one of them and then start to dissect how important what you're bringing to the table is. And if it's the ports or the nonprofits or whatever, each one of those has its own space. And it's super valuable and it's super important what you do bring to the table. Dude, I personally, I think it's awesome. I mean, we met probably, I don't know, relatively soonerish after I had the opportunity to get the role here and work with you on the webinar that we did and just learn more about you. So
yeah, and keep fighting the good fight, man. Because I saw a post, I think maybe yesterday actually, like of the Christian rapper Cray did a post, and it was interesting, and he took an apple and he's like, if I cut this apple open, I see how many seeds are. I know how many seeds are in it. But what I can't tell you is how many apples that seed can produce. Nobody knows that. You have control over how many seeds you plant and how you take care of those, but you don't know how many apples that thing's going to produce. So, keep planting your seeds.
Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah.
Jordan Appleseed.
Way to tie that in, Jordan.
Beautiful.
But that's a phenomenal analogy, and I think sometimes we can just get caught up in the weeds of the day or the task or what it is, and lose perspective of how what we do continues to impact others. I know we're starting to run out of time, but even to that point, Walter, with what you do, I'm a pretty big ISACA fanboy as well for the opportunities and what I get to do down here. But
President.
yeah, well, no different than Walter's doing. And honestly, I think as he was sharing before we hit record, their chapter's going through a bit of a reboot, and he's got a lot of the next generation and their opportunity to start really learning some of those real world skills of not only security and risk management and stuff, but business and leadership is huge. And so what you're doing right there, and you and I both know it's a volunteer thing. It's nothing that goes into the wallet. It's something that goes into the heart, and it helps fill our cup. And
we are getting deep today. I love it.
Yeah, well, Jordan opened that rabbit hole, man. But no, but dude, I don't. Those things are so invaluable. We had our monthly meeting yesterday, and you've got the people that are, olderish or, have that knowledge, and then you've got the younger ones that are trying to get in and understand. And it's a really, really awesome dynamic where things can happen.
Yeah, and it's really important that, our generation, if you want to look at it that way, we have this years of decades of experience. So why not? Like if you can help somebody by believing in them, giving them the confidence that they can do something, teaching them, a few leadership skills.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small investment. Jordan, you said it's putting a seed and planting that seed, but you have no idea what's going to happen. And that person might come back to you years later, 10 years later. And I've heard these stories about, yeah, when you way back when I met you and you said this to me, things like that. And now they've got a career and a family and a home and they're living the life of their dreams because something you said really resonated with them and
Exactly.
they took it to heart and moved on. So that's where the storytelling and the analogies and it captures people's attention. It's that's all more valuable than and what you've learned and how you share it we shouldn't keep it to ourselves. We should share as much as we can.
Yeah.
And give it back to the world and say, look, here's what I learned. I mean, it was hard. It was tough. I suffered. But I overcome and I won and I succeeded. And then I fell down again. And then I got back up again, and it happened more than once. But every time I got up another rung on that ladder, or I climbed another 1,000 feet in elevation, right? On that mountaintop, or I took one more step forward and that changed everything.
Yeah. No, it's huge. And I do see that we are kind of running up on time. So that's probably as good a place to wrap as any. But dude, got to have you back. Totally appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing. And
tell you the shark story. Yeah.
I love
we'll just make chapters out of it.
I love the conversation. There's so many rabbit holes to go down. As an ADHD guy, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could sit here for a while.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Oh, hey, my pleasure. Love it. And thanks for having me on the podcast, on the show, guys. I really enjoyed the time together. And, I hope we gave you some value, some insight, and I don't know, some funny stories too.
Yeah, absolutely. To be continued.
Yeah.
Get on a boat and jump in the water.
Yeah.
Swimming with the sharks.
Going with you, Walter. Let's go.
Yeah.
I think you might have missed some of the wisdom in that one, Andy.
He made it, didn't he?
Get back in the boat.
Yeah.
Stay in the boat. All right, we'll stay in the boat and drink margaritas.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
All right, guys. Well, thank
Cheers.
you all so much and wish you all a great weekend.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye.